What is up, everybody? It is Steve the Hurricane here, and I'm just super excited for today's episode of A Drink with the Hurricane because I have the chance to share with you someone who is a former mentor of mine, who's now become like a colleague of mine in the influencer space. And he represents the skilled nursing facility. He represents the hospital side of it, the true medical side of the elder care industry. And so, before I introduce our guest speaker, I want everybody, as always, on the Drink with the Hurricane, I want you to raise your glass and let's take a toast and cheers to your success. This is A Drink with the Hurricane, the talk show discussing all things growing your home care business. This video is sponsored by Home Care Evolution, where we help home care agencies adapt to changing circumstances, transform their business so that they can thrive for years to come. Let me introduce you to my friend, founder of Honor, and I'm honored to introduce the fabulous Mr. Tim Hodges. Tim,
thanks, man. Hey, Steve, how are you?
I am doing well. I've been going since 4:50 this morning. So
I know, you never stop. I know, you're incredible.
Some days those energy just kicks in, and I'm like, you know what? Let me get the editing done. Let me do this. Let me do that. So it's a wild day. So
do you do your best? First of all, it's an honor to be here. You know, I'm a humongous fan and just think the world of you. I'm so proud of you, and you're an inspiration, as I told you all the time, actually. But I have a question. Do you do most of when are you most productive? Morning, afternoon, or night?
Evening. So it was a rare thing that I got up this morning. I usually kids go to bed, wife goes to bed, and I'll work until 2, 3 in the morning and sleep in. I set my schedule. I have clients all around the world, so I usually come in later. But this morning, my wife and the dog were up at like 3 o'clock, so I woke up shortly after. I was like, I'm going to get a head start on today.
I love that. Yeah, you got to work in your own groove, right?
Yep.
That's cool.
So, real quick, Tim, before we get into like all of our nuts and bolts and discussion points here, tell everybody who you are. What's your background? What is Honor? What are you doing these days?
Thanks. Well, again, thank you for having me. I'm really honored to be here. Not to overuse that term, but it's great. First of all, it's great to see you and catch up. So, real quickly, I started in the elder care business, if you will, in the 1980s. Probably a lot of your viewers and your customers weren't even born then. But I started as an assistant administrator. Actually started in the hospital, and then I started working in long-term care actually in the early 90s as an assistant administrator of a nursing home. And the company that I worked for, it was a large multi-nursing home facility company, and our quality and our financial performance, I'm proud to say, I don't know how much I had to do with it, but it was really good. And they said, hey, this is the best performing facility in the company. Have you ever thought about a career in business and marketing and not administration? And I said, sure. So I took a different track. I took more of a business development marketing track. And then I went on to help build and run one of the largest senior care companies in the Northeast that had, nursing homes, assisted living. I wear a lot of hats there, mostly business development, but I actually ran operations for many years and was on the executive team. And then after 20 years, I thought, I don't think anybody should do anything for 20 years, the same thing, even though it was diverse and fun and always a challenge. So I thought I'm going to scale back and maybe semi-retire at 52. That was my goal, to retire at 50. I was a couple of years late. And then COVID hit and I got really I wanted to get back into the game and help. So I started Honor Aging in honor of my parents, because they always told me I should start my own company. And my business partner is a nursing home administrator and also was a former employee of mine. He said, hey, if you're doing this, I was blessed that, people wanted to come along for the ride. So we've been in business for about a year and a half now. And we really do. We have 6 or 7 companies. We do consulting on operations and marketing to assisted living and nursing homes. We have a number of clients. We do hardcore operations of nursing homes. We're blessed. We just won the contract in New Jersey to manage the Menlo Park and Vineland Veterans Nursing Home.
Nice.
And do consulting there. So that, that speaks to our mission of wanting to add value, especially to our veterans, who I believe should get really the best care of anyone, since they sacrifice so much for us. Um, we have partial ownership interest in a hospice in New Jersey. It's a small hospice. We like to call it New Jersey's hometown hospice. And then we have a very vibrant recruitment business for leaders in senior living, administrators, directors of nursing, corporate folks. And we've placed over 100 individuals over the past year into leadership roles. So we're really proud of that. And
Wow.
we've got other business interests on the horizon, all aimed really at elevating the level of quality of care that patients receive in the home and in senior living. So it's multifaceted. We didn't know exactly what direction it was going to take, but with it, as you know, the market, the customers decide what they see value in you for, and that's where we go.
Right. And so just for our audience, as you're watching this and you're listening to Tim speak here, Tim is somebody who was almost like a mentor to me in many ways. And so when I was back in my day, when I had my company Care Choice, I always have a Care Choice reflecting here, right? So you probably remember one of
Yeah.
these clipboards, Tim. But he was the chief marketing officer at that big multi-location huge entity that he was talking about before here. And when I wanted to start my company, this one here, Hurricane Marketing Enterprises, Home Care Evolution, I had asked Tim what was his thoughts, and he told me that you should go for it. Somebody like you, 6 months from now, if it's not working out, you can always find a job. You have a skill set. You have a certain desired audience who are looking to hire somebody like you. You'll always be able to find a job. But if you commit to something 20, 30 years passes by, and you may look back and regret not having taken that leap of faith. So I started my company largely because of that advice. So I'm very proud and happy to see that now 11, 12 years later, you've done the same thing.
Mhm.
And now you are a leader, and all of the people that you mentored and guided along the way, you're kind of working with them again now at a completely different capacity. Like last night, I saw you were speaking at a CEU event all the way down in South Jersey, right?
Yeah, it was a great one. Actually, we had 150 hospital case managers, and the team. It was yeah, you're right. The team were former employees of mine. They now work for a different company. And you're such an amazing, inspirational public speaker. It's so much cooler when it's a very engaged, not to pat myself on the back, but a lot of people were there, had come because they heard I was speaking, so I felt good about that. And I'm passionate about speaking about topics related to combating ageism in healthcare and educating people on the new realities of longevity. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a gerontologist, but I've paid my dues in the senior care space and have done enough research to feel comfortable communicating other people's brilliance about that topic. And that's what I do, a lot of that.
So let's take that and let's dive into some of that, because there's a couple of topics that we're going to touch on here, and this is one of the ones that I am actually very passionate about, because as I guess I'm a millennial, right? But I call myself a zennial because I've got a little bit of X in me and a little bit of millennial. I'm 1980, right? So as a zennial, I look forward to my retirement, right? I have a retirement
Yes.
plan. My wife and I are going to travel. Just all of the traveling that I currently do every week, I get discount flights if I want to fly here, but you got to go on these dates, and discount hotels here. So my wife and I have already planned out where 6 months of every year when we're retired, we're going to be traveling. But that's us. There's this movement, though, where I feel like you have your baby boomers and other people who are maybe second career or elder professionals. So they're not old. I don't want to use the word old because old is a state of mind, but they're close to retirement or even past retirement age, but they're
Yeah.
choosing not to retire. Can you talk to that? This is the longevity that we're discussing here.
Yeah,
Talk to some of that. What does
absolutely.
that mean? What does it look like?
Yeah. Well, I just want to take a pause for a second and go back to your introduction, just so your audience really appreciates who you are.
Oh,
So not only were we friendly, but you walk the walk. I know that you do a lot of education and training to professionals in obviously the home care space and others, but you probably forgot, but you were also someone that helped me with my own family when you were at Care Choice,
I
and
never forgot.
you're the only person I called because I knew, which is so relevant to everything that you do, because as you know, people, we can start here. I'm a big believer that people don't refer to companies, people refer to people in healthcare, in car sales and home sales, and not to belittle that, but it's such an emotional and important decision, home care, nursing home, hospital, whatever, that people go to the people that they trust the most to get things done. And you were that for me. So I just wanted to say thank you, but also tell your audience that you did this, you lived it. And I know you still do. So I wanted to share that and thank you again.
I appreciate
All right.
that. And I know real quick from
Yeah, no
that,
sweat.
I
It's
actually was
real.
thinking about that this morning, and you had told me this is something I teach all my clients. So everybody who's listening to this, it's relative, right? You want to be that agency that's the go-to agency. And so I remember this morning I was thinking about when you spoke to your social worker about the care that you were looking for, and she gave you a list. And then you go back, I don't have time for a list. And you said to her, if it was your mother,
Yeah,
who would you want to take
exactly.
care of your
Right.
mother? And then she goes, call Steve. And then you called me.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
pressure on. There was a lot. We were nervous, but I knew we'd get it done. And,
Yeah.
and so I'm glad we were able to fulfill that for you.
You know, I, I know you said this, and I tell people this all the time in marketing training and sales, that there's nothing better that you can tell a customer or referral source than don't worry, I will take care of everything. And you said that all the time. And that's the people you go to. If you're using a service, you want somebody who is going to get it done and get it done the right way. So I know you've built your career on that, but I just wanted to tell you again, I appreciate that moment of my life and all you did. All right, so let's talk about the new reality of longevity. So there's a lot of elements to it. The number one thing that, when I give these talks to healthcare professionals, I tell them up front, I'm not here to talk about, the origins and the physiology of Alzheimer's or congestive heart failure or diabetes. I like to present information to them to help them become better people so they can serve their clients better, whether they're discharge planners or case managers, whatever their profession is. My goal is to help them become more well-rounded. So the piece about, longevity has a few components. There's the mental and spiritual, there's the physical health, and then there's the financial. And all of those are very relevant issues that most people don't spend enough time thinking about as they age. And if you think about it, the average lifespan in the 1800s was in the 30s, a little over 100 years ago. Today it's 75. All right. And there's no reason, and most projections are that lifespan will incrementally grow, to be close to 90 or 100 in 30 to 40 years. So our lives are being extended, but we want to enjoy our lives in our older years. So we want to be healthy. But the number one fear people have about aging is running out of money. And I think that's pertinent to your group because there's an opportunity to help educate caregivers and their parents on best practices and things they should be doing now. Steve, in the United States, it costs about $1 million to retire. That number is still valued. That's always kind of like the number that you've heard for years and years and years. Unfortunately, in the United States, the average median savings for somebody in their mid 50s is a little over $100,000. So if
My
you think
God.
about it, they have 10 years to retire and they have, 10 times less the amount of money they need to retire. And the thing that people don't plan for, and I'll throw out a couple of reports and links for people right now, but there's a couple of great statistics. There's a company called Edward Jones, which is a very famous investment planning, retirement planning. They just did a fantastic survey with AgeWave, and people reported that their biggest fear in retirement is running out of money, but they give a lot of tips and tools and things that you can start doing to better prepare. And one of the things that they recommend is stop giving all your money to your kids, your adult kids. And the research in return for millennials is the millennials don't want their parents to suffer financially. They want them to live active, healthy retirement lives. So to the extent that your audience, can educate and thus market by education their companies, I think financial planning and strategies is really a good topic, that because people turn to you. I had a family member call me last week, and my first advice to them was you need to see an elder law attorney. You got a lot of moving parts with estates and durable power of attorney. I didn't even want to talk to them about assisted living, which is why they called me, because they don't have the basis, and there's people I trust, like I turn to you, you turn to people. So, as elder care providers, as we talk about longevity, there's many parts to it. There's financial, there's health, etc. Now, what I went to a lecture the other night so if you want to get that report, it's Edward Jones, and just give me a second. I'll have it by the end of this, but here it is. It's called Resilient Choices, and it's on their website, Edward Jones. And I highly recommend it. It's an easy read. It's 30 pages, but it outlines what people's new thought is, both mentally and financially, and how you should best prepare for retirement. And it's fascinating. For example, this is just one little, if I can make a tangent for a second. I was surprised to read, I know this is going to sound silly, but the number one thing people do in post 65 to combat loneliness is they get a pet. So if you think about how we service our clients, how could that fit in? You have I'm sure you have a majority of your clients are home care, correct?
Yes.
I'm sure there are pets in the home. There are things that maybe you could do you probably talk about this, to service the pets, because the pets are aging too. But it's shown that pets can cure a lot of loneliness that older people have. And women live on average 3 years longer than men. So there's a lot of older people out there, and loneliness is really an epidemic as well.
Yeah. You said so much light on so many different things. So, like, first, to the pet point, and I'll use this as a shameless plug, right? Everybody's got to
Go
make
ahead.
sure that they go to homecarevolution.com/magazine, and they subscribe to get the next issue of Home Care Evolution Quarterly, which is coming out in a couple of weeks. But the reason why I'm using it as a shameless plug is because my own mother, wrote an article in the last issue, and she's got a caregiver, and she wrote about her experience having a great caregiver and everything else. And my mother had a dog that had lived with her for 16 years, and 8 of those 16 years was after her stroke. And so having the caregiver being able to interact with the dog really helped her out. So that's one thing you touched on that I love. The other thing, to the financial planning aspect of it, which is so important and something that I'm very passionate about, for those who come to my boot camps, for those who've been to certain events that I do, I talk about, it's all about quality of life. And it's if you're in your 20s, that's the best time to really get started with it. A lot of people don't realize the laws of compounding interest. I actually was at my financial planner on Wednesday, and just looking at, I'm 42 years old right now. I started many of my financial planning things for retirement when I was 22, 23 years old. I started it. And if you can, with hustle, with commitment and dedication, from age 20 to age 50, that's 30 years. If you can set aside, I know it sounds crazy, but just 1 million, and I say it like that because it's 30 years, right? But just $1 million accumulated by the time you're 50 from 8, and put nothing else into it. So then, like, to your point, instead of giving it to your children in your 50s, or maybe you can give it to your children in your 50s, right? You stop putting in at age 50 to age 65. Over that 15 years, that $1 million will be almost $3 million, because of the laws of compounding interest at 6%, which is pretty much the industry standard during that 15 years with $1 million in. It's mind-boggling how much people can do if they do it early. Now, obviously, many of our people listening right now are there. That's great, Steve. I'm 57. I'm 60. What is that going to do for me? And that's why we're talking about longevity, because there is this shift where a lot of folks are wanting to stay at work, or they're wanting to start a second career, or they're opening up a business, or whatever it is as their retirement. And so that's a separate shift in and of itself. And yes, to your point, with people living longer, I actually think back to my own clients I used to take care of. Every single one of them who retired late in life lived longer. Like I'll never forget this man. He was 96 years old. On his 96th birthday, he retired from working, and he got sick like 2 weeks later, and then he passed away like a day and a half after that. And the family was like devastated. And I said, do you know how lucky your father is? He had 96 years of good health.
Yeah.
He lived his life. Yeah, he worked, but he went on vacations. He did stuff, and he only got sick for like a week and a half and died. Like that's fortunate, you know? So I just wanted to touch on that. So, you know, to this longevity, to this, I either have to continue working or I want to continue working. What do you say to that audience?
Well, the two things. One is you're so right on everything you said, but I also want you and, you know, whoever hears this to also think about compounding interest in your health, because it's the same concept. The same way your money grows year over year over year and improves, the same attention you pay to your health has benefits that grow exponentially over the years. So I wanted, with whatever time we had left, I wanted to introduce to you, because I feel like I'm an ambassador for this group. There's a Harvard professor named Dan Buettner, Buettner, who came up with a very emerging, well-accepted theory called the blue zones. And the blue zones, Steve, are 5 places on the planet that Dan and his researchers discovered had the most percentage of population who are centenarians, or 100 years old. There's one in Southern California in the Baja Coast, Greece, Japan. I apologize, I forget the other 2. Italy, actually. Yeah. So
I know that. I'm familiar with
going
that
to quickly
report.
go through with you why those 5 places have the highest life expectancy. And there's 9 pillars. I'll go through them very quickly. The first is purpose. The purpose to get up every morning and make an impact, whether it's your work, your grandchildren, your pet, your gardening, your painting, your singing, you're going to Broadway, your climate, you know, whatever, travel, whatever it is, having a sense of purpose. Number 2 is doing one thing every day to reduce stress, whether that's, you know, transcendental meditation, whether it's yoga, whether it's watching mindless reality TV, which is my go-to, or taking a walk, whatever it might be. You have to do something every day for yourself to bring down your stress level. Meditation has proven to actually add years to people's lives if they practice it for at least 15 minutes a day. The next 3 are a very strong connection and bond with your family, and however you define family. But if you don't have, you know, your safe place, which is your inner circle, your family, if you do, it can add up to 6 years of life to your lifespan. The next is your tribe, and that's your friends, your social circle, people that are you're comfortable, that are like-minded but not afraid to challenge you, you trust, you seek advice from, etc. You have to have a tribe. It doesn't have to be 1,000 people. It could be 3, it could be 6, but, you know, having that camaraderie, if you will, and kinship with people is critical. The next is faith. Only 6 people of the 2,500 people studied, and I know you're a spiritual guy, only 6 people reported that they did not have a strong link to spirituality. So think about that. Only 6 people out of 2,500 that have an average life expectancy of 100 did not
That's a
have faith.
percentage of 1/10%. Right.
It's ridiculously low. So however you define your spirituality, I'm not on a soapbox.
Right.
You know, you have to, if you want to live longer, research has shown that you have to believe in you should believe in a higher power, or you should practice believing in whatever it is you believe in. And now the next 4, by the way, all of these are in everybody's control. The next 4 are more dietary and health related. So people that have a high life expectancy walk 10,000 steps a day. It doesn't have to be, the benefits of walking more than 10,000 steps a day are flatlined. there's really no incremental benefit from doing more than 10,000 steps, which is the good news. It's not easy to do 10,000 steps. I have one
Oh,
of these monsters on my arm every day reminding me, but
about five
people that
miles.
walk 10,000 steps a day live longer. And then the last three are nutritional. Plant-based Mediterranean diet is the preferred diet of these individuals. So low fat, low saturated fats. And then they do something interesting. They found something interesting. If you eat and are 80% full, stop eating. People that have long lifespans don't eat till they're full. And the last one, which is my favorite, I'm not a drinker, but people who live long have a glass of wine every day. So you can have that glass of wine. I know. And
I
those
have
are the
about
9
400
pillars.
bottles of wine in my house. I'm a wine
What's that?
collector. I'm a
I'm
wine
sorry.
collector. I have about
Good.
400 bottles of wine in my house, and my wife and I drink a glass every day, at least.
So I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you, of those 9, are there 2 or 3 that jumped out to you that you feel you can set goals for and do more of?
So I'm going to be real with you, Tim. I'm doing all of those, and
I know you
it's
are.
for those who are listening who've been to my events. You know that I open up every single event with a session called the 5 wellnesses, and the 5 wellnesses encompass basically everything you said: having your social wellness, having your spiritual wellness, having your financial wellness, because obviously financial stress can carry over into other areas.
Yeah.
Making sure that we have that mental wellness and that we're in a good mental and emotional state. I mean, with that one, I always talk about how with all the mental health issues that we have in our country and around the world, anxiety and depression are kind of running rampant. People are addicted to these things, and this is not helping the cause at all. It's actually making things worse. So we have to make sure we're making time for that: mindfulness, meditation, prayer, all of that. And then obviously with the physical. So everything that you said, I live by all of these things. And I was laughing when you had mentioned about the overall health and wellness leading to longevity in a exponential standpoint, where I go to the doctor regularly. I actually have a vitality doctor that I go to.
Good.
And with the physical fitness that I do, with the eating, with the time for spirituality, with my family, everything that you just said, I actually am the physical age of the average 21-year-old man, and I'm twice that at 42. And so I'm pushing it. I've reached new limits in my physical health. I mean, I work out regularly. So everything that you're saying, I subscribe to it 100%. And I'm glad that you brought it up, because that is the key to longevity. If you want to continue to work later in your life, if you have to be able to keep up with the pace. If you have to work later in life, you need to be able to keep up with the pace, and being able to do an 8-hour day, being able to do nights, weekends. And for those of you who are starting a business, second career, the average adult doesn't start a business until they're well into their 40s. That's average. That means there are a lot of folks starting later. You look at people like Colonel Sanders. He's one of my favorite people to look at historically. He was 65 when he started Kentucky Fried Chicken, died in his 80s. So he had 15 plus years of Kentucky Fried Chicken to start this whole external, beyond his life legacy that is Kentucky Fried Chicken. He started at 65. You have to be able to physically keep up, mentally keep up, everything else to be able to do that. So I love what you said. And for all of our listeners, everything that Tim is talking about will be in the link below. We'll have all of the links to every one of the websites that he's referencing here. So this is perfect. I think what we're going to do, Tim, I think we're going to actually make this into 2 different videos. So let's change our subject now. I want to talk about, as an expert in the healthcare sector. Most of my audience here that's watching these videos, these are home care business owners. And so something that I'm very passionate about is helping them get better at what they're doing. And I love your background being marketing, and then it led you to operations, because mine is the same way, right? When you're out there promising, and then when you have to sometimes step in to be able to deliver what you're promising, which makes you an operational expert in delivering it, so that you kind of switch it over. And that's how I am too. I'm doing this from the point of, I want to help my client and my listeners improve the quality of care for the end user. So if they're trying to get business and they're trying to work with skilled nursing homes, They're trying to work with assisted living. They're trying to work with hospitals. From your side of the desk, right? You are the skilled nursing, you are the hospital, you are the assisted living. What is it that you expect, and what is it that you're looking for from these home-based providers when they're transitioning your patient back home?
Yeah, so there it's not that complicated, as you know. I think that I own my own business now, so I have to grow my business. So I'm still my number one. I have a lot of younger people that work with me that part of what I enjoy about my business now is that I'd like to leave a legacy of developing other leaders and helping them have a successful life, long after I'm gone. And I talk to them about things that were helpful to me in growing my career. And one of them is very simple, and I know you know this too. And it's really comes down to relationships. I think I know that sounds horribly simple, but as I said, people don't refer to companies; they refer to people. And I think I try to spend. To be honest with you, I don't need to. I'm blessed. I don't financially have to go out and speak 3 nights a week to audiences or have lunches with people. I do it because I like doing it. I like to interact. I find people interesting, but I also feel, you have to invest time in getting to know people and having them get to know you, and not just talking about your product or service, but people want to know there's character. They want to know that there's reliability and relatability. And I think, you have to obviously, which I'm sure you spend a lot of time coaching on, you have to spend a lot of time nurturing your, relationships. I talked to one of the greatest moments I had last evening, for example, it's top of mind, is, and I'm not saying this to toot my own horn, I was surprised. 3 people came up to me and said, do you remember me from 20 years ago? I always enjoyed working with you, et cetera, et cetera. That to me is the greatest, compliment, when people kind of, when you stand for something for people. But to get there, you have to get out there, and people, you have to be transparent, and you have to make the effort. So, the core things are obvious, dependability, quick turnaround time, delivering on your promises. Sometimes what you say no to is more important than what you say yes to. I'm a marketing guy by nature, and I know you too. You're a people pleaser. You always want to please everyone, the customer, your family, your friends. But I've learned over time that you can't just say yes just for the sake of making people happy. You got to do it the right way. So I've learned the value of saying, I don't know the answer to that, or I don't have a solution to that, or we can't accept your patient in any of the settings that I consult in or manage, because we don't have the staff, or we don't take that type of client, or they don't have the finances, whatever, or we need to help them get on to Medicaid or veterans assistance, whatever it is. I think people appreciate, there's nothing worse than reneging on a promise. So I think number one is don't make a promise you can't keep. Don't overpromise. People respect you more for telling you the truth. And also, if there's it's healthcare. I say this all the time. It's never problem free on any referral, it's emotional. There's a lot of moving parts, so there are going to be mistakes, and the ball is going to be dropped somewhere. But the providers who shine, that I know I work with and that my teams work with, are those that say, look, it's our fault, we own it, here's what we're doing about it, and I'll follow up with you tomorrow on the result. Done. End of story. So I think the major tenets of what people expect are reliability, transparency, and credibility. Experience goes a long way. Hustle. You know, I I like to tell my teams that there's no shortcuts. And I think in today's age, with no offense,
Instant
you're a
gratification.
different ilk, but I think the people that are 20 years younger and less than I am were brought up in a different era. It's a digital age. You want high-speed internet, you want immediate results, and there's zero shortcuts to success. Do it the right way, even if you might lose, quote unquote, the sale, or in the long run, you'll always benefit. There's no shortcuts. Do it the right way. Doesn't mean it has to be prolonged. You can still hustle and move, but you got to do it the right way.
So Tim, I everything that you said was spot on, and I love it. And so for all of my clients, for everybody out there who's listening to this, right, there's several different things. So first off, think about what Tim just said, right? If you're one of my clients, you've been in my classes, you know I talk about how there is no such thing as an overnight success. It takes time. As a matter of fact, while you were saying, I actually have on my Care Choice clipboard, right, notes from one of the classes I ran a couple weeks ago, where I talked about how the average person will go to a referral source to develop a relationship 3 to 5 times before they give up. But then I say that it actually takes about 8 to 12 visits before you start to make progress. And the reason why I say that is because of what you said, Tim, in that the referral, this is an emotional thing. That social worker, that director of nursing, that administrator who's making a referral, this isn't a broken down car. This isn't, a repair for something, your toilet broke in your house and you're referring a contractor. This is a human being. This is a patient. And in order for you to be able to feel comfortable giving that referral, you have to trust that this person's going to get it done. You mentioned own up to your mistakes, right? Deliver on your promises. For those of you who are clients, I actually train you. I have a whole session on that in advanced training, lesson 6, where I spend an hour going over exactly that. I love what you said, Tim, using no and telling people what you can't do as a benefit as well. And I think back to my marketing days at Care Choice. And I would go in and I would tell people, don't send us companion level cases. Don't send us somebody who needs somebody to come out 3 times a week for a bath visit. We're not built for that. We're going to fail at it. We're going to turn it away. Don't send it to us. You send us your medically complicated patient. You send us the 24/7. You send us the live-in case. You send us somebody that needs help 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you send us the patient that you're thinking, if this person, no one can take care of this patient. That's who you send to us, right? We're the medically, and we're going to take care of it. We're going to thrive at it. And so it's almost like, instead of trying to be everything, just focus on what you can do best. Because when you do that, you will get the referrals. That's going to build the trust a lot faster, and you're going to grow your business. So I love that. So to your point of building a relationship, I want to stay on that 8 to 12 visits, right?
Yeah.
It's hard, right? So to be diligent from your side of the desk, as the administrator, as the director of admissions, as the director of case management or director of nursing, you have a full-time job and then some. You're in a skilled nursing facility setting. There's always meetings. There's always something with the patient. There's always a challenge. There's always a crisis. And then you have this marketing representative or this business owner from this home care company trying to get 5 minutes with you. How can they build a relationship? How can they bring value to it where they all come in and they all say we're the best? So what are some things that they can do for that conversation to kind of either expedite it, or what would you say to that person who's just beating their head against the wall because they're not able to get that time?
It's a great question. I think that I'm picky when it comes to marketing and sales. I've built my career on quality versus quantity, number one. Number two, I think one of the things that, because everything we do has to be quality focused. At the end of the day, it's got to translate, as you know, to high quality of care for your end client, your patient or client or resident. But one of the biggest mistakes and one of the best pieces of advice I try to share with people, and I don't profess to be a guru. I'm not as talented as you at marketing and sales, but I have built a nice career, around it. And one of the core things I think that people forget to do is don't oversell your product, but what I think people want to hear more, even if you don't think they want to, they do. Focus on telling your story, because as I said, people, in healthcare want to interact with people they trust. Everything's about trust. So you have to almost reprogram your brain in everything we think we know is a successful salesperson or marketer. Develop your story. Why did you get into healthcare? What motivated you to want to make an impact in other people's lives? Why did you Why did you get out of a business in finance and banking and open a home care company or get into a franchise? There's a story there. Nobody falls into healthcare. I don't care what you say. No, everybody that's in healthcare is in it for a reason. They were inspired by a grandparent, or some situation that made them, and I'm not talking just about nurses and doctors, everybody, the business office manager got into healthcare for a reason. They may not even realize it, but they did. So I think you really have to hone in on what your story is, because until you establish, it might take 3 or 4 meetings. You're right. Trust isn't established overnight. And eventually people will say, you know what, I'm going to give you a shot. But you also have to ask for the business. You also have to, that's a big mistake. I often say to, or used to say a lot to people that were new clients, give us a shot. I'll personally oversee it. Here's my number. I'm accessible, but try us, and we'll I guarantee you will outperform. So there's a lot of moving parts, but you got to sell yourself before you sell your product. I think that's the best advice I could give to people.
Tim, that was textbook, man. I mean, I absolutely love it. Everything that you're saying, I resonate with it. To the trainings, for those of you who are clients who are listening,
Well, you
look.
did it. I know you did it because I was a customer.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, to the training for those of you who are clients watching this, go to fast start lesson 4, lesson 5, and lesson 6. Those 3 lessons of fast start where I go
swear to
over.
God, I didn't read your content. This wasn't pre-planned.
Well, that's why I like having these. I feel like I'm interviewing myself, right? Because what you're
Yeah.
saying from the other side of it, it makes sense. And this is what people want to hear. And this is where I have people who are brand spanking new who are clients of mine, and they just opened their doors and they're like, how am I going to get business? I was like, tell me why you are doing this. To another point that you had mentioned earlier, when we first started talking about spirituality, right? I actually say that no one just gets into healthcare. We're all called into healthcare somehow.
Exactly.
It's like a higher
Yep.
power and it just called us and moved us into it. Like you mentioned, a parent, a loved one, or for me personally, I actually went to school to be a minister, and it was a perfect blend of my professional work experience and my spiritual
To help
pastoral
people,
training.
sure.
It just makes sense. But people, and another thing I want to mention that you had said too, and this is something I want everybody to write down. Facts, FACTS, facts tell, but stories sell. Facts tell, stories sell. When you have a good story, that's what people are going to buy into. When they know that you're going to do this for the right, because again, what are we selling here? We're not selling cars. We're not selling, dishwashers or appliances or something. We're selling a service that is taking care of people who are literally living their worst fear. Like one of the greatest fears of older adults is losing their independence. So by the very nature of what you do, Tim, the nature of what I do, we are providing services for people who are experiencing their worst fear, right? I can think of hundreds of times, maybe even thousands, where I had patients say to me, I wish whatever it was that happened that put them in this state of stroke, hip replacement, whatever, I wish that killed me because this is terrible, right? So we're literally taking care of people living their worst fear. That's the reason why it's about who's gonna answer that call at 2:00 in that morning when the person fall out of bed, who's going to be there for that family when mom passes away. It's so much more than just sending a caregiver into the home. So I love everything that you said there, Tim, because that is fantastic.
Thank you.
Is there any tidbit or tip or advice that you would give to somebody to initiate this kind of a conversation, or who should they seek out when trying to get into one of these communities or facilities?
That's a great question. I mean, I think anybody that's working with you, I'm sure you've gone over the best practices and the hard, the skills needed, as well as who the best people are. But I think one area that I've always focused on whether it's in operations or in marketing, healthcare, is talking a lot and developing a very, very broad physician network. And I think people have a fear of, marketing and selling to physicians, but physicians make all the decisions in healthcare. I always say that people follow the advice of the 2 people closest to God. their pastor, their rabbi, or their doctor that saved their life. So you have to be ingrained in the faith community and the communities that you operate in because, you know, I mean, when I'm in church on Sunday, they still read off the names of people that are in the hospital or nursing home, say prayers. So people talk about that stuff, and it's, you know, part of the community. But physicians are the people that, you know, if a physician tells a patient, look, I've worked with this home care group, they have gone above and beyond for me, and the patients are really happy. There's no doubt about it. That is what that client's going to choose. A lot of people come back to me and say, doctors, physicians, they really don't care. They don't make recommendations. It's not true.
Right.
With geriatric patients, you know, those consults and those one-on-one visits last for a half an hour to an hour, and they talk about a lot. It's not like a cold or flu of an 18-year-old. And oftentimes the caregiver and the patients will say, okay, if I need to get surgery, where do I go? Or if the mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, the issue of care will come up. So I think to the extent that you can make connections with physicians, especially in the home care space, because I find a lot of home care companies don't develop and physicians can help you with the care. That's the other piece too. You want good quality transitions of care and continuity, and you have to have it with physicians and their nurse practitioners. It's a game changer if you can do that, because it will differentiate from a quality perspective, I think, your home care agency, but also help you, you know, with your word of mouth, building your census.
You know, Tim, I love that you said that there. And for those of you who are watching who are clients, because not everybody's a client who watches these, but
Okay.
for those who are a client, I actually go over that in Fast Start Lesson 1. And I mentioned that a physician, by my definition, is like a general in an army at a hospital. You know, they're a physician who makes rounds at a rehab center or is a medical director of a rehab center. They may not be making that direct referral, but if you get in with them through their private practice, they will gladly bring you in there and say, this is who I want you to work with. There were many a times when I would be in one of the buildings that you managed, and I would be sitting in with the patient, and one of the physicians that I knew, I won't say any names, you know, but there were some physicians that I knew that would come in and they would be there to see the patient. And I'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry. Why don't you talk to the patient? No, Steve, I'll come back. They literally walk over to the patient, put their hand on the patient's shoulder or hand, and they say, this is my friend Steve. He's working with 25% of my patients at home, and I want you to go with him. So he's the best company out. And I'm like, and then it's like whatever I say is golden because their doctor recommended me. So that is fantastic advice. So Tim, you know, thank you so much for coming on here. We're at the top of our hour here.
Pleasure.
I know you got stuff to do, I got stuff to get to, but how can people find you if they want to hear more from you, if they want to reach out, if somebody's listening who might need your services, how can we find out more about you?
Well, thank you for offering that. Honestly, the best way to reach me is if you're on LinkedIn. I'm very active on social media, so feel free to connect with me and message me if I can help you with anything, rather than memorizing my long email. So just check me out on LinkedIn, and my company is Honor Aging. You can check out our website and contact us through there. You don't have to contact me even if you just want some general information, but it was really cool and exciting to catch up with you today. And I'm really honored that you asked me to be on your show. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Tim. I appreciate you. So there you have it, folks. You know, it's another episode of A Drink with the Hurricane. Love this content here. Everything is designed to help you to get more patients, but not just get them, help you to improve the quality of care. At the end of the day, it's all about helping our seniors age in place with dignity and grace. So go out there, my friends, execute, see you at a boot camp, and you know we're going to give you everything you need to blow away the competition. Take care, my friend.